I think it's crazy how you can have a rushed and undercooked story like Marvel's Spider-Man 2, and still have people like Synthetic Man absolutely fail at criticizing it. It's fascinating what happens when your focus is on playing Count the Minorities instead of, you know, the things that actually matter in storytelling. Synthetic Man argues that this game is woke propaganda, which implies that it shares misleading or wrong ideas, so I look forward to the examples that he's going to use.
Now, reviewing this game is going to be difficult because I am so utterly frustrated and tired with all of the political virtue signaling that is in modern video games, and this is one of the worst cases I've ever seen, by the way. If you tuned into the streams, you know exactly why already. So it's going to be hard to actually try to give this a fair review because this game really pissed me off.
So, from the footage I'm gathering, he admits it's harder for him to be objective about this game because of gay people and people of color. I see we're off to a great start with this video.
I mean, I don't think I've been this mad at a video game, well, at least since Starfield, which really released not that long ago, but you might have thought that I was reaching on some of my points with God of War Ragnarok's story. And I'll admit, I was barely paying attention half the time because that game was so unbelievably boring.
So, can you stop throwing things in your intro that immediately reduce your credibility? Because this is only harmful to yourself. Establishing that you didn't pay attention to what you're reviewing is a terrible look.
But Insomniac's Spider-Man 2 is not just almost as equally boring as God of War, but also twice as woke, undeniably so. It'll be interesting to see the usual suspects try to pretend that this isn't clear political propaganda being shoved down our throat.
You're saying all of that just because a woman beat a man in a fight?
There's a lot of story-based side quests in this game that are tagged with the superhero app that this fat Asian kid named Genki made for you. I never played the Miles Morales game for obvious reasons.
Well, maybe you should either play or at least catch up with the story before trying to break down this story, for obvious reasons.
So I had no idea who the fuck this kid is, and I really don't care if he's been featured in the comics. He's a lame character. I don't like him. Spider-Man is a genius. He can make his own fucking gadgets, okay? Stop taking shit away from him.
It's not within Peter's character to just refuse help when saving the city. This was a very specific arc that he had in the first game that focuses on the fact that he's still one man who can't do everything himself. How exactly does it take away from his character to show that he's building a team of allies?
And then, the quest all of you were waiting for me to talk about, where you help a gay kid ask this dude out to homecoming. Spider-Man is wasting his fucking time helping some gay kid ask out another gay kid. Are you fucking kidding me?
How is Spider-Man wasting time in this cutscene? Spider-Man is willing to spend some time helping people, even for very small-scale stuff, hence why he's called your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Now, I'm fine with criticizing this mission from a gameplay perspective, but criticizing Spider-Man's character for this is a strange angle to take.
What the hell, man? It's not like this is fun. No, you just jump around some rooftops and shoot some webs at some shit, and the game forces you to watch. I literally tried to leave, and the game forced me to web back onto the lamppost over and over again. This is what I'm talking about. This is how you know it's propaganda. They're shoving it down your fucking throat.
So I'm curious, would you still say that this is propaganda if Miles did the same thing with a straight couple? I wouldn't, considering this doesn't feed any misleading or bad information. It's just Spider-Man helping out in a small-scale manner. There's nothing misleading about that. So what's the difference between that and if the couple was gay? What's the propaganda element outside of saying that gay people exist? Explain that.
But in Insomniac's infinite wisdom, because they couldn't have this character talk to herself, at least out loud, because she's deaf, and this is a modern video game, so the protagonist has to comment on what's going on every 5 minutes, or the fucking soulless golem zoomers playing the game would get bored and turn it off, I guess. Instead of making her just think, emojis pop up on the screen. Deaf people apparently can't think. They don't have words in their head. They can read, but they think in emotes. That's it's so woke, it circles back around to being like racist, sexist, ableist, whatever, you know?
I'm so lost here. The emotes are simply there to reflect your thoughts and emotions that they can't always do through dialogue, which is more appealing than simply dropping text to reflect your thoughts. Now you could say that they should be more creative by relying on body and facial movements, but that alone doesn't make it propaganda.
But of course, about halfway through, they have to virtue signal to you and throw in a mural saying how great BIPOC artists are and we all need to stick together. Because, you know, women think all minorities are the same, apparently.
The phrase birds of a feather doesn't mean they're the exact same. It simply refers to people with similarities, such as backgrounds or struggles. That's all this message is saying. So how is that in itself propaganda?
And you might wonder why I'm singling out women. Well, the lead writer of this game was a woman.
So you just accused women in general of thinking minorities are the same, and your reasoning is that the writer is a woman. You don't see the irony in that statement.
Cause hot damn, you wanna know what's a scam? Your fucking education. Nigga, that's what the scam is.
And not long afterward, you go to some African art section of the city, and there's a whole other side quest line about retrieving stolen instruments from this black art museum. My god, this game is full of shit like this, dude.
Where is the propaganda? That specific museums meant to represent specific parts of history exist? That's propaganda to you? You keep making these claims but fail to present any clear evidence or reasoning to support them.
This is actually part of the main story, but you meet a scientist chick who has the non-binary flag and the monkeypox flag on her desk. There's a pawn shop with the Ukraine flag on the inside, which this is fucking comic books. This is exactly why I made those two Escapism is Dead videos, because modern developers will not let you escape reality. You must support the current thing.
So, this is an accurate depiction of reality, which means it's not propaganda. Are we just not allowed to have anything that can be remotely tied to the real world? Did we have this problem when the American flag was constantly in Spider-Man media? Or when real holidays like Halloween, Thanksgiving, New Year's?
Feliz Navidad! Happy Hanukkah! Kwanzaa! Solstice! Can't we put our differences aside for one night?
Wow, Spectacular Spider-Man is woke propaganda because it's trying to be inclusive for the other holidays.
And this is a more minor complaint, all things considered, but this Danica podcast with this purple hair feminist chick is so cringy and unbelievable. It's like the writers fundamentally don't understand what makes podcasts like Joe Rogan popular, and so they have this harmless, sterilized, likely self-insert character who gives the most safe, politically correct opinions on shit that's going on.
Not everyone runs a Joe Rogan type podcast. Also, in a world where two Spider-Men exist and are idolized by the public, why would someone covering them positively not get any attention? Especially since she literally had a debate with J. Jonah Jameson, so she has direct competition. Last I checked, debates tend to keep viewers invested in watching podcasts.
I mean, J. Jonah Jameson's podcast would be 10 times more popular in reality, even if you don't agree with what he's saying, which a lot of the times what he's saying is absolutely correct.
Inflation through the roof, feckless government officials, and a country on the brink of a collapse not seen since the fall of the Roman Empire.
He just sounds way more interesting. He's actually giving a real opinion. He's enthusiastic. Danica is a face for radio, and she's boring as shit. There's no way anyone would ever listen to her.
Boring is a subjective qualifier. I don't care if you find her boring, this doesn't mean that nobody would listen to her. You need to actually cite recordings that the viewers wouldn't find interesting in this world. But you don't actually do this.
Okay, I think I've stalled enough. Let's finally talk about the main story and how Insomniac's writers, or at least the lead one, absolutely hates Peter Parker. Now, this story was a bit of a convoluted mess, so much so that just 2 days after finishing it, which is the time I'm recording this, I basically already forgotten 80% of it, and I had to go back through my footage just to create this synopsis, which is really not a sign of a good story, and I promise you I actually tried to pay attention this time, unlike with God of War Ragnarok, where I was looking at chat for probably half the game, because once again, that game was boring as fuck.
I don't think it's the fault of the game that you were unable to create a synopsis of it after your first playthrough. It wasn't an issue for me when I went through the game's story, and I don't even think the story is good. I think it's really bad, but you're also bad at criticizing it.
So the story begins with Sandman attacking the city. Why has he attacked the city? I guess his brain is scrambled. That's pretty much as far as it goes. It's explained later that he was being chased by Kraven, but Sandman, a guy who's made of fucking sand, is afraid of some random Russian hunter guy who has a magic potion that makes him somewhat stronger than a normal person.
Kraven has an army and can make use of weaknesses to sand. The game even shows Kraven exploiting the symbiote's weakness to sound to his advantage, so why not assume he did the same to Sandman's weaknesses?
Now, of course, because we needed a new villain faction in this game, Kraven also has 1,000 fucking goons working for him. I mean, seriously, why does he have so many badass hunters that are full of women and people of color? I mean, this is the most diverse group of villains I've ever seen in any video game.
Well, given that Kraven is willing to travel throughout the world to hunt, he would come across a diverse set of people throughout the world. Seriously, there are actual things to criticize about the story, and you're focused on counting the women and minorities? This is shameful.
I guess on the bright side, you get to beat the shit out of women. Spider-Man hates women so much that he'll break every bone in their bodies. Spider-Man beats up women because he can. Video games are so woke that beating women is no joke.
So I played the entire cringe for you all to see, not because I find it genuinely funny, but rather I find the attempt at humor so pathetic that rather than laughing with it, I feel obliged to laugh at it.
Spider-Man comes across some gun goons who are the least diverse enemy group in the game. They are not only mostly white, but they are pretty much all men and they're jacked.
Who cares? All you're doing is playing Count the Minorities. That's not compelling criticism. It's very weird criticism at best.
Which just made me like them more and want to be part of their club. But we get a little piece of subtle propaganda in there.
I think I'm gonna start a petition. Replace all the gun clubs with something better.
You're right. Revoke the Second Amendment, Spider-Man. I agree.
Because we should totally accept on-the-spot quips as definitive political opinions. This isn't advocating for people to not have means of defending themselves. MJ literally has a sable gun for self-defense. You'd think Peter would have an issue with that if we're to accept your straw man for his character. But he doesn't, so you're just spewing nonsense out of nowhere.
Now, I know people are going to debate this point whether or not it's actually woke, but honestly, I don't care. There's much bigger fish to fry here. At the end of this mission, we end up rescuing J. Jonah Jameson, and he is one of the very few based characters in this game, though obviously unintentionally, as he's just meant to be a right-wing caricature, which is actually hilarious because he's almost always correct.
That Mac Gargan, the Scorpion, has been found dead. His stinger removed like a trophy. One can only assume this was at the hands of the Hunter. Are they doing what the ineffectual Spider-Men won't and removing these dangers permanently?
So Jameson is correct because he's siding with the murderous hunters who do this for sport?
And shortly after this, we get to meet Miles' friends, Fat Asian Kid Genki, and his deaf girlfriend. This is just fucking cringe, man. I got nothing to say about it, really.
Then I have nothing to say in response, because you've put zero effort into criticizing their character writing.
Mary Jane, more like Manly Jaw. She looks old enough to be Peter's mom, and with a giant fucking man jaw. That is a man, dude. Look at that body. Wide shoulders, no hips, flat ass. That is a man. And the worst thing is, we know she's a face scan model. We also know what her face used to look like in the old game. And this is what her model actually looks like, okay? Now here's the big twist. This is what the lead writer for this game looks like. Oh yeah, that's not a coincidence. Mary Jane is 100% a self-insert in this game, and that becomes very obvious near the end, but we'll get to that later.
So this is just blatant misinformation? The writing intern had to come out and state this is false. There aren't any facial scans of this writer at all. She worked remotely as a writing intern, not the lead writer. The actual face model was at Insomniac Games and did the face modeling herself. What on earth is this nonsense conspiracy theory? This would be just as absurd as claiming Tom Holland was the face model for the remastered game because it looks similar, which some people apparently thought at the time.
How many gay jokes are in this fucking game?
What? What are you, stupid? What are you talking about?
Shall be your best.
I shall be your first. Oh my. Oh, okay. They're doing it on purpose now.
Goodbye, sir. I will not even dignify that argument with a response.
So in our next mission are two Spider-Men, and yes, they call each other Spider-Man. Gee, I'm sure that wouldn't be confusing at all to the public, especially when one sounds black and is clearly wearing a different costume.
For one, I don't know how you can hear color, but do enlighten me as to how. Second of all, there's nothing difficult about specifying the first or second Spider-Man if you have to. How do you think we distinguished between Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's versions for years? Even if you didn't know the names of the actors, you can simply say the first movie Spider-Man, or the second movie Spider-Man, or the reboot movie Spider-Man.
Kraven was certainly one of the only good characters in this game, even if I don't really like the idea of him having 1,000 minions. I mean, where's the sport in hunting this ultimate prey if you have an entire army capturing them for you to fight them in single combat?
It's called hunting in packs. Also, Kraven himself is doing the main encounters. Kraven having an army simply enables him to design these battles for himself.
And you would think with Miles Morales being Peter Parker's student, protege, apprentice, whatever you want to call it, that maybe Peter would help him forgive Martin Lee, or maybe at least resist the urge to kill him. Nope. Miles does this all on his own. In fact, Miles takes care of all of his problems on his own.
So, there's a small point to what he says, but he doesn't go that direction, so there's not much credit to give. In canon, yes, Peter should have stepped in and said more to Miles to sway him away from killing Martin Lee. It's important to remember that Martin Lee was his friend at Feast, and Peter was committed to bringing him back into the light, so you'd expect even more investment in getting Miles to not want to kill him. However, Synthetic Man doesn't say anything this elaborate. He just complains that Miles can be independent in his decision-making or achieving his own payoffs, which isn't inherently an issue. If anything, that gives him more agency.
But not just his, but also Peter's problems, and people say he's not meant to be a replacement. Well, this game basically straight up tells you that he should replace Spider-Man. So you're just fucking lying to yourself, and it's an embarrassing lie.
He doesn't replace Spider-Man. Peter simply took a break, and we know he doesn't quit because we literally see him in Across the Spider-Verse, which is after this game. So you're just flat out wrong.
Now, I hope you enjoyed that mission, because the next one is another walking simulator one. Hooray! At the Emily May Foundation, where they shove another environmentalist message into your head.
So it's propaganda that Spider-Man wants to protect the planet and is on board with the Emily May Foundation for that reason? You keep saying that things are propaganda, and at best, you highlight messages that exist, but fail to outline what's bad or misleading about them. Now, to give an example, it's also sending a message to talk about Spider-Man's responsibility to the city or his beliefs in redemption over killing. These are messages the story pushes, but that's not propaganda. You can't say things are propaganda and just show me messages. Give us meaningful details about why these messages are harmful or misleading. Talk about the actual execution of these themes.
Apparently now she's a lesbian, and she uses the scroll to teleport to Paris so she can get with her girlfriend. Are you fucking joking? And what adds insult to injury is Black Cat is one of the only vaguely attractive women in this entire game. There is no other explanation for this except that the writers hate Peter Parker, and they hate Peter Parker's fans.
How does the writers hating Peter Parker have anything to do with Black Cat? Is it just because she's bi? Because we've established earlier that you apparently have a problem with that.
All the self-insert nerd people who Spider-Man was literally made for. That's why he's one of the most popular superhero characters ever since his creation, is because he is the perfect self-insert for the nerds who are reading comic books.
Peter Parker is not a self-insert of people reading comics, he just has relatable problems to the average person. Those two are not the same.
And so Peter Parker's life is shit, man. So many bad things happen to him. It is a running trope across all of his comic book series. And so what did they do? They gave him a supermodel girlfriend so that he has one thing in his life, one good thing to keep him going so he doesn't just blow his fucking brains out.
If you seriously think this about Peter Parker, then you're just as shallow as your interpretation of him. You're unironically arguing that he has nothing going on for his life outside of MJ?
Not even Aunt May? Those weren't my thoughts.
And what do they do in the games? They take that away from him by making her a fucking 50-year-old man-jawed and although Black Cat is still somewhat attractive, in the comics she was a fucking bombshell, dude. Easily one of the most attractive characters, just like, you know, Catwoman, who she's blatantly a ripoff of.
Is this all you care about? Seriously, this is the equivalent of people who watch movies just to see things explode, which is fine as a casual viewer, but you're reviewing a fucking game here.
And so, you know what? This isn't just a slight against Peter Parker. This is a slight against me specifically. Fuck you, Insomniac. And fuck anybody who praises, encourages, or even is just okay with ugly art. Because that's exactly what this game is. It's disgusting, demoralizing propaganda trash.
Listen, Synthetic Man, I understand it's offensive to you that this game isn't eye candy for you, and I'm very sorry that offends you, but this has absolutely nothing to do with propaganda.
I seriously have to ask you if you're one of my black viewers, which, believe it or not, is 12% of my stream audience at the very least.
Believe it or not. Gotta love that word choice.
Do you actually think Miles Morales is cool? And I mean Insomniac's version. I think the Spider-Verse one is completely fine. But Insomniac's Miles Morales is fucking Urkel, and you can't change my mind.
Well, to answer your question, yes, he's cool in the first game and his solo game. But unfortunately, not so much in this game. Which is strange because you'd think that in this game, where he's the weakest written, it'd be easy to come up with criticisms of his character. Yet Synthetic Man is somehow struggling to make valid criticisms.
They tried to make him just Peter Parker, but with black skin, but he's actually worse than that. He's a fucking whiny nerd bitch.
If all you can do is throw insults at a character without providing substantive criticism, I think it's safe to dismiss your statements. Why put effort in a response when you never put effort into the original point?
As Peter discovers the location of where Kraven's goons are hanging out, having a party, and we get to see yet another huge woke moment.
It's a huge woke moment that a hunter was more skilled than another, because women can never be more skilled in anything, apparently.
And everyone just thinks this is okay, this is fine. This totally means nothing. Your lying eyes, your pattern recognition, that's just schizo shit.
What pattern recognition is there? Some people are more skilled than others. That's the simple answer. I'm sorry if that offends you, but that's the way things are.
I was seriously disgusted when I saw this.
Well, I'm very sorry that offends you.
Now here we have the first major moment of the story that legitimately pissed me off. Despite losing to Kraven in a 1v1 fight, Miles is able to defeat Peter with the symbiote suit on. And I just know there's going to be people making excuses for this, saying that, well, Miles' bioelectricity abilities are more effective on the symbiote, and he also could ring the bell in the arena. Well, first of all, it's fucking stupid that his electricity is good against everything in this game. Yeah, not a single enemy resists his powers in any way. In fact, most of the time it's the opposite. And while the bell argument is fine, I still don't think it should have been enough.
So he goes on a whole tangent about how bad it is that Miles wins this fight, then proceeds to say that the bell argument is fine, even though sound is established to be his primary weakness in the game. Thank you for wasting everybody's time.
And they have a conversation on a nearby rooftop, which is the beginning of Peter's various groveling, apologizing moments that you're gonna get for the rest of the story. None of this was his fault. Venom was manipulating his mind.
Okay, but he still did those things and would feel guilty about it as a result. He doesn't have to be completely in control to feel sorry about what his actions have caused. Also, he's not an outright puppet in this game. They established that it plays on his desires. So it's not like he was just being mind-controlled, rather his brain function was being hindered. There's still a degree of responsibility you have for your actions, which is something he acknowledges later, and we'll get into that.
Now we get to arguably the worst part of the entire game, the Scream boss battle. Mary Jane gets infected with the symbiote, and she turns into Scream, who actually is the symbiote from the comics, and we get the most blatant, transparent, feminist rant I think I've ever heard in a video game. I'm just gonna play some clips from the boss battle and you could judge for yourself.
Done begging for validation from you, from anyone.
Validation? If this is about your job,
It's about me. Nay! Not my job in this stupid house.
Typical woman. Me.
It's almost as if the point is that she's wrong here.
Sorry.
It wasn't you. And I wasn't me earlier.
I don't know how you thought this of all things was a gotcha against what the game was telling its players.
Man, I got nothing more to say here that I didn't already say during the stream. This was painfully bad. Mary Jane is obviously the self-insert of the lead writer for this game, and this rant must be directed toward her ex-boyfriends or some shit.
Well, earlier we've established that you didn't even check who the lead writer was, so we'll take that with a grain of salt. And the game literally has Peter say that this wasn't her, as if this was a bad thing. So why is this your example of the writer self-inserting to send propaganda to people?
Because this is some of the most out-of-touch, narcissistic bullshit I think I've heard in any piece of entertainment.
Which is why this was said under the symbiote. Are you slow?
It reads like a parody. And before anybody says that, oh, that's the point because she's got a symbiote on her, so that's not really what she thinks. No, the symbiote is enhancing what she already felt.
So Peter shouldn't apologize because he was mind-controlled, but MJ is at fault because the symbiote plays on how you actually feel and amplifies it. How do you not see the contradiction here? And sure, you can say it's out of character for MJ to feel invalidated by Peter, given her arc in the last game, but this isn't the level of detail you go into, because your review is lazy.
And that's why Peter is constantly fucking apologizing and acting like a bitch the entire time. Fuck you, Insomniac. It's unbelievable. I've got nothing more to say, really.
So, the absolute most I will give him is that the dialogue could have been tweaked for Peter to take less blame for some of the things that she says, because Peter should be doing more to convince MJ that she's being misguided, rather than taking all of this just to get her to trust him.
But the worst part of this mission comes right at the very end, as despite Peter now having a real reason to contribute, something that makes him stand out from Miles, since Miles is pretty much just him but better, he says this.
Why would the city need me when it has you?
Now all of you can stop coping, seething, and dilating, claiming that Marvel's not trying to replace Peter Parker since he's a straight white male. Insomniac just straight up told you that Miles should replace Peter.
The game doesn't say that Miles should replace Peter, the game is saying that Miles can look over the city on his own. The end of the game doesn't have Miles replacing Peter because Peter doesn't end up quitting. This line, while kind of cringe, doesn't prove your point.
Because he's better in every way, and he's also an oppressed minority.
What the fuck does this have to do with anything?
And he's very cultured. And Peter, at the ripe old age of 26, is busted and slow and useless despite just being given a power which would justify his existence in this plot.
Peter is still the one who uses his anti-venom powers to free Harry in the end. So where's this game trying to deliberately make him useless?
This is where they decide to put this line. This is the writers saying fuck you to the audience and that they hate Spider-Man.
That's purely speculation at best. Is it possible that a lot of the writing mistakes for Peter, specifically regarding his nerfing, was done out of a slight or subconscious disregard for Peter as a character? I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. The point is that this is speculative, so I don't know why you're so adamant on this being a fact.
People who hate Spider-Man were put in charge of writing a Spider-Man story. You know, kind of just like comic books over the past, 15 years. But Sony fans are fucking idiots. They'll eat this slop up, they don't care, because they hate themselves. They are the soy boy beta male redditors who hate themselves.
Here's an idea, Synthetic Man. Why don't you start going into further detail when making criticisms and actually present them with a modicum of constructiveness or impulse control? Because anybody that's a fan of this game's story is not going to listen to you screeching like this over what they enjoy. Now, this isn't to say that you're incapable of making good points. I didn't play them because I would just be agreeing with what he said, but he does make some good points regarding the gameplay or the writing, but a lot of it is drowned out by bad faith or purely rage-driven criticism, while displaying a misunderstanding of what propaganda is.
Peter finally purges venom from Harry's body.
Oh, but I thought you claimed he was made to be useless earlier.
And then we get yet another fucking terrible scene where Peter takes a break from being Spider-Man to be Peter Parker. Now, some people have interpreted this as him retiring and Miles taking up the mantle, but you and me both know that Spider-Man 3 would fucking bomb, much like Miles Morales did, if Miles was now permanently Spider-Man. So, of course, Peter's gonna come out of retirement in the next one.
Yeah. We know this because Peter never said he was quitting.
And then the end credits scene where it shows Miles' mom is dating some dorky fat Asian guy, and his daughter is Cindy Moon, aka Silk. So we're now going to have 3 Spider-Men in the next one. Instead of Spider-Gwen, it's going to be Silk. Because it wasn't enough to have a minority Spider-Man, we now also need a woman Spider-Man. In fact, just fucking kill Peter Parker already. I'm tired of this bullshit. This story fucking sucks.
So, I don't like this decision either, but I don't know why them being minorities factors into what the problem here is. I don't know why you keep focusing on this. It's so weird. The problem is that once you introduce another Spider-Person, you're running the risk of retreading old ground. In order to have this story, many tropes from the Miles Morales game are gonna have to be used again, which would only make Silk less compelling. And if you skip over those plot beats, it's gonna feel shoehorned in when we have a new Spider character who's ready to take on the Spider mantle. It just makes the cast feel overstuffed without reason, so I don't see the justification for this. Now you can see right there that this is a level of detail that I went into, but Synthetic Man didn't, because he's too busy playing Count the Minorities.
So in conclusion, should you buy Spider-Man? Well, you already did or you already didn't. But just in case you were waiting for my review, no, don't buy this woke piece of trash. Do I need to remind you of the gay homecoming dance mission?
Why should this be a pivotal factor as to why you buy a game or not? I care if the level design is good, not if the characters are gay.
Do I need to remind you where you play as Miles' deaf girlfriend?
I don't care that she's deaf.
Do I need to remind you that this is one giant story to set up Peter Parker's replacement? Even though Miles had almost nothing to do with the overall plot. You could have easily cut him out of this game and just had Peter team up with Mr. Negative, or maybe exploit Venom's weakness to Sonic, or, you know, bring back his comic book weakness to fire.
Your idea is even worse than what the game did. Miles was a crucial character in Spider-Man PS4 and Miles Morales, so removing him from the game is ignoring the setups from the previous games. That is actually bad storytelling. Why would Peter's main ally be Mr. Negative? He needs to be reformed first, and you can't just leave him reformed from the start, because that would be a rushed redemption for him. Miles makes the most sense as Peter's main ally in the game.
Maybe have Human Torch show up, because he's actually friends with Human Torch in the comics.
The Human Torch barely has a presence in these games. Why would he be a better fit than Miles?
Literally anything other than playing as other Spider-Man for no fucking reason other than diversity points.
The other Spider-Man has different powers you can utilize. Now they could give him a different fighting style, though that would come down to the game design to have this done effectively. And at least in concept, I don't see how this is different from other games that have effectively had multiple playable characters. In GTA 5, you can mostly do the same things with all 3 characters, but the intrigue in using the other characters are their unique abilities, connections, property, and other elements of the world that are unique to their characters. The same can be done with Peter Parker and Miles Morales. Now, it's one thing to go after the execution, but you clearly have some irrational issue with the concept.
And they clearly care more about pushing their progressive politics than they do about telling a good story.
And I can just as easily say that you're more interested in pushing your non-progressive politics instead of making a good review. And this rings true for your case. It sucks that a lot of Marvel Spider-Man 2 criticism just gets dismissed straight away because of goofballs like Synthetic Man who latch onto nonsensical reaches to call things woke propaganda and get overly offended over blatant non-issues. And because nonsense like this hits the algorithm, plenty of valid criticism that can be made for the game ends up getting drowned out by this political brain rot.
Well, Sony's fucking dead to me now. I look forward to putting this on the worst games of 2023. Not because it's objectively as bad as Forspoken or Gollum or Immortals of Avium, but because I despise this game much like I despise Starfield. So that's about it. See you next time, guys.
So earlier he said the gameplay is good, and here he admits that he isn't saying the game is one of the worst for reasons rooted in unbiased assessment. He's saying this because the game offended him. Well, I'm very sorry that it offends you, but we need better points than this.
Alright, here we go. Miles, no, choose life. Not bad, not bad. Okay. That's more fun than I've had in the last several hours playing this game.
I see you have healthy ways of taking out your frustrations, so that's all I have to respond to. Like I said, there were some reasonable criticisms that he made, and I didn't play them just so I can briefly say I agree. My main focus here was on the insane reaches he made to call it disgusting woke propaganda, alongside some other points that were weak. This character I've witnessed is fairly cartoonish to say the least, but hey, he was at least funny to laugh at. Because sometimes that's all you can do with people like this. Just laugh at the insanity. That's all I've got for now. If you disagree with anything in this video, feel free to join my Disagreement Day streams. You can also join my main Discord server to suggest any videos you want me to respond to, and subscribe if you want more of these. See you all later. Goodbye.